So I used to be very excited and motivated by certain ideas that would pop into my head without knowing where they're coming from, and I would be seized by it. I would be possessed by it, as if I had someone pulling me in a direction that I didn't know where it was taking me. And I would execute that idea. I would make it come into reality, and it would bring me so much joy and fulfillment just because I was delving into something that was very spontaneous, coming out of nowhere. It wasn't pre-planned. It wasn't executed in a certain fashion that was, micromanaged. It wasn't a known phenomenon. And that made me so curious to know what exactly is going to come at the end of it, so that it brought me so much joy when I figured it out. And that joy made it even more enticing to do this activity over and over. And I became so entrenched into this beautiful spiral of creative endeavors that I would bring myself into without so much expectation of how the result is going to come out, what sort of like project it's going to be, how successful it's going to become, and how many people are going to be gravitated toward that. Am I going to capitalize on it? Nothing like that ever crossed my head when I was completely engaged in that activity. I was feeling like something is inspiring me and it's an idea that I would love to explore, not because I'm becoming successful because of it. No, not because I'm like gaining a lot of capital because of it, but because I really, really enjoy doing it, and I know that it's very good for me. It's kind of meant to be what I do in life. And when you lose that unexpected outcome, when you lose that unknown, the project that keeps you on the tip of your toe, you want to see what exactly is going to come out of it. When you lose that sort of mentality around doing something that you love, you're probably going to fall into this trap of trying to make the best out of that. And whenever that comes around, that sort of perfectionism, it's not even perfectionism, let's not use that term because it has been so overused that at this point it has lost all meaning. Instead of that word, I would say when you become so dependent on the result, when you want the result to be successful, when you have an objective, not to just purely enjoy the process, but to gain something out of it. When you have that utilitarian sort of purpose behind it, you're not going to be able to gain as much fulfillment out of it as you would when you allow yourself to freely explore the entirety of that landscape and give yourself the liberty to just go wild with whatever comes to you. When you open your mind to opportunities, to ideas, to things that happens on the spur of the moment, things that are super spontaneous, when you do that, when you open yourself up, you're probably going to get so much more out of that creative project than you would when you're so attached to a certain outcome, a certain picture that you have in your mind. You want to accomplish that and that only. That's only going to hammer you into the ground, and it's not going to be at all viable for you to sustain that sort of mentality throughout the entirety of your career, even if that's what you're doing as a career. And I think if you want to do something as a career that is at the same time a creative thing, you have to be very careful not to attach yourself to the outcome so much, not to be entitled to it, not to desire a certain expectation that you want to get out of that. You have to let it unfold on its own accord and keep your mind open to even new and novel ideas that you've never considered before. You don't have to plan every step that you're taking. That's when things are just gonna go wrong. You're definitely gonna lose your excitement when you're pre-planning everything and not leaving anything up to chance. And I'm not saying that you have to do everything this way. Of course, when you're scheduling your day, you have to be strict. You have to have structures that are super known to you, and it doesn't have to be so unplanned and so sporadic and so spontaneous and out of nowhere sort of activities sprinkled into it. Instead, you have the structure, but you leave space for something that come to you without your planning. You leave space for unknown to occur because that's how you're going to get novel ideas. Ideas, when we're talking about creativity, it's like fishing. It doesn't come to you because you're forcing it. It comes to you because it exists out there, and it doesn't come to you because you're generating it in your head. It comes to you like when you're catching a fish. It feels very external because it is. Because you're allowing your mind to vibrate through the entirety of the universe and come back to you. You're freeing your mind to travel and to gather any creative energy, any ideas, any innovative, understanding that it can access and then get back to you and then give you this moment of exhilarating epiphany or an insight or that creative click that you all of a sudden get an idea. And that's going to only happen if you free yourself. If you're not attached to a certain outcome, if you're not forcing it, that's how you're gonna get it. And if you try to abuse that dynamic, if you want to force yourself to be much more creative than you can possibly be and to cram as many activities into 1 hour, and when I'm saying activities, I mean creative activities. If you're treating the creative craft making as just a means to an end and not an end in and of itself, you're probably not going to enjoy it. Therefore, you're not going to get as much creative energy or ideas as you wish to get. And it's going to slow you down, or the result is going to be very mediocre because you're allowing nothing to enter your mind, and you're certainly being forceful in the way you're trying to gain a certain idea or an insight. Do not force it. But you also need to practice this mentality because it doesn't come to you that easily. It's not a natural mentality. Or I would say it is a natural mentality, but we have gotten it out of our mind by constantly being under the impression that productivity comes by forcing yourself. Productivity comes by cramming as much as you can into a tight schedule. That's not what it is. You have to unlearn that sort of mentality, and it's gonna take time. But you can start by just like sitting somewhere and exploring something in a very easy manner. You know what I mean? It's like you can pick up a notebook and draw as many stupid shapes as you can. Make it even the worst it can get. But at the same time, be attentive to how it can get better. And be spontaneous. Practice spontaneity because it's a muscle that you have to exercise. And if you do so, you're eventually going to become so confident in your ability to make up things on the spot that it becomes kind of like your superpower. You become so much more creative because now you can catch that fish in a way. You're very good at fishing the ideas out of nowhere, and it doesn't come from your mind. Do not be sitting somewhere trying to rack your brain to generate a certain idea, but to give yourself the time and space to release the tension and make space for new ideas to come to you rather than you going to them. You have to be waiting for them to just, fall on that net of yours that you've spread. That's it. Just practice that. The more you do it, the better you become. You know what I mean? So that was for today. I will talk to you next time. That's a sure thing.